The following short demonstration is an overview of the use of North Dakota's Airport Payment Management System, APMS for short, results website. The website presents the results of the most recent APMS update that was completed in 2019 by the team of Mead & Hunt and Applied Pavement Technology. The content of the website is very similar to the previous study. However, there are some changes in the user interface that were required in order to make this product compliant with Section 508 of the American Rehabilitation Act. Because of that, there are going to be some portions of the software or the application that will require a little bit more knowledge and use, and this demonstration is supposed to provide you with the background information needed in order to successfully navigate through the website and review the results. First, I would say that the content is essentially the same as previous studies. If you scroll across the top, you will see statewide summary information and a drop-down list. This provides overall summarized statistics for the state's system of airports, including information about the area of the pavement, the age of the pavement system, the condition of the pavement system, as well as some application of constrained funding scenarios and an unlimited budget analysis, identifying the amount of dollar figure need for pavement repair and rehabilitation across the state. Lastly, there's a link to an executive summary which provides a PDF copy of the report that presents many of these statewide statistics in a more condensed and streamlined fashion. Next to that, you'll see airport details. Underneath this tab, you will navigate to go to individual airports to identify the results and review the results of the PCI study, the analysis, the executive summaries that have been compiled for individual airport use, as well as photographs and all the other information presented as part of the payment management update. The final three tabs over here provide maintenance guidelines, routine maintenance guidelines presented by the FAA, some of the FAA's maintenance guidelines, and background information on pavement maintenance, followed by a tab that presents pavement inspection criteria, the process that was used to identify the condition of the pavements in the study. There's asphalt distress, Portland cement concrete distress, causes of those types of distress that we look for when we're out doing a pavement inspection, as well as the criteria used during the PCI or Pavement Condition Index inspection process. And then finally, there's a miscellaneous tab that provides you with some acronym definition information as well as some general information about this website. To start out, I'm going to select statewide summary statistics, and you can see that one of the first changes you'll notice is on the left-hand side of the screen, there is a drop-down list with the information that's presented underneath this tab. Quickly, to look at overall summary statistic information, if you select area summary, for example, in this instance, you'll see that there's a statewide area summary information, area summary by airport classification, by oil region, and by funding eligibility. Essentially what we do on the statewide statistics is we present the results as a whole, then we present the results split by airport classification, then we also present these results split by oil producing county or oil region, airports that are in oil producing counties as opposed to those that are outside of that region. And then there's also a summary of funding eligibility, which is NIPIAS, non-NIPIAS airport summary information there. An example would be, if I click on the statewide area summary, you'll see a series of charts. These look different from the previous version, but they provide the similar information. Scrolling over the top of the donut, I'll call it, chart, you'll see the amount of pavement area for all airports included in the study. So as an example, I'm scrolling over the Portland cement concrete pavement. We have 26.5 million square feet, or roughly 46.5% of the pavement identified in the state system is made of Portland cement concrete. As I scroll down, we break this out by use: taxiway, runway, apron, T-hanger. You can see that actually nearly half the pavement in the state system is actually runway pavement, 26.8 million square feet. We split it by airport classification between general aviation and commercial service. Similar amount, while there's only 8 commercial service airports in the state, the amount of pavement area represented by those 8 airports is actually more than half of the pavement in the state. And then we've got the same information broken by oil region, as well as funding eligibility. Those airports in the NIPIAS that are eligible for federal money for pavement repair, and those airports that are not in the NIPIAS that are only eligible for state and other types of grant funding. Finally, there's a distribution of pavement area by condition value. So the PCI value, or pavement condition index value, for those that aren't familiar, is an index number ranging from 0 to 100, 100 being a pavement in perfect condition with no distress, 0 being a failed pavement with significant amounts of distress. The range of value between a 0 and 100 is presented on this scale, and the amount of square footage of total pavement in the state is presented in this information. A couple of notes. You'll see that there is a corresponding table as well as figure with each one of these pieces of information. Sometimes as you navigate through, you might see a little context table here that shows a chart, where you're allowed to look at just the chart of information, just the table of information if you wanted to see that, or both side by side, or one below the other. So anytime you see chart, both, or table, the user is allowed to configure that to view the information. That makes it much more easily readable on smaller screen resolutions. If you just needed to see the table of information, you could look at that. Underneath the next piece of information here, area summary by airport. Classification, this is going to show you a split between, it's the same information presented in the first tab, but it's a split between general aviation airports on the right, commercial service results on the left. So you'll see a split and be able to make that comparison between the commercial side of airports in the state of North Dakota and those airports that are general aviation. Same thing with the distribution. The remaining tabs are essentially the same. It's just instead of an airport classification split, it's an oil and non-oil region split, or a NIPIAS, non-NIPIAS split. Similar information is presented by all. Age summary, inventory age summary, very similar to the area summary. It's just going to provide you with an area weighted age of the pavement in each one of these categories. So this is by surface type. You can see overall as an example, asphalt overlaid on Portland cement and concrete pavement in the state has an area weighted age of 16.8 years. Similar thing for branch use or pavement use. You can see, for example, here in the entire state system, 10.7 years is an area weighted age of all the runway pavement in the state. Then we do it by classification. You see commercial service airports have an area weighted age of 14.8, where general aviation has an area weighted age of 10.4. Then we break it by oil region as well as by NIPIAS and non-NIPIAS. And we finally have that same PCI scale or summary of total pavement area by range of PCI, and it would kind of go along the lines that pavements that are in relatively good condition are younger or newer pavements, as opposed to pavements that are in really poor condition are relatively older than that. They've had more time to deteriorate. Underneath this age summary, we have similar statistics. It's just split by airport classification between commercial and general aviation. By oil region would be the next tab. Simply clicking it would get you to the split between oil region, and then by funding eligibility. The next item underneath this statewide summary statistics is a condition summary information. By clicking the first one, you'll see statewide condition summary. Charts are available. These provide you with an area weighted PCI of various components. We had age information, we had total pavement area information, and now we've got an area weighted calculation of condition. So for example, for all the airports in the state, the average area weighted PCI of all asphalt overlaid on Portland cement concrete pavement is a 72, whereas asphalt overlaid on asphalt pavements, AAC, has an area weighted PCI this last cycle of 71. This information is presented by runway, by branch use as well. As an example, we have a split. The area weighted PCI of all runways in the state is a PCI of 82. We show it by airport classification, so you can see the commercial service have an average value of 80, whereas general aviation has an average value of 77. We have the split between oil region as well as by funding eligibility. The same information is presented in a table Here's an area-weighted PCI of each airport in the system. So you can actually sort this information ascending or descending. Wherever you see a little arrow in the column, you can sort that accordingly. So you can see Bowman and Williston actually make sense. They're both brand new airports, have an area-weighted PCI of 100, as well as sorting this by airport name. The area-weighted PCI by the runway. This is just looking at runway pavements, so the entire runway. If an airport has 2 runways, for example, Bismarck is shown here, the area-weighted PCI of 1331 is a 100. It was just recently reconstructed, whereas the Crosswind runway has an area-weighted PCI of 76. So information on runways is displayed here as well. If we go into condition summary by airport classification, by oil region, and by funding eligibility, we show splits of the same information. It's just split between commercial service and general aviation for classification, similar with oil region, non-oil region. And a similar split in presentation of information split between those that are in the NIPIAS and those that are in the non-NIPIAS. The last item here, before we get to the report, is the needs analysis. This is showing an overall amount of money that's needed in each year during the 5-year analysis period. And this is an unlimited budget scenario, so we're taking into consideration only what the current condition of the pavement is, what the potential forecasted condition of the pavement will be in the next 5 years, and what type of level of repair is needed for that pavement, independent of whether there's money available for it or not. So this shows in the first year of our analysis, roughly $134 million is identified for pavement repair need out there in the system. This is a backlog of work that still exists on the current, and it's pretty typical of what you see. If you were to do all of that work in the next subsequent 5 or 4 years of the analysis, you can see the overall amount of money. And it's broken out by the entire system, general aviation, commercial service, oil, non-oil, NIPIAS, non-NIPIAS. We also present in this summary an area-weighted PCI of the overall system, as well as the runways, taxiways, and aprons, T-hangars, during the previous inspection cycles or the previous funding or previous APMS updates. We had the 2009 condition, 2012, 2015, and then the most recent condition assessment was done as part of this project in 2018. And then it shows you if you fund all of the overall needs and had all the money, this is where your system could be. Under the current anticipated funding levels, this is where the system's projected to be. And if you had no money and stopped doing payment-related repairs and rehabilitation, this is where the system is forecasted to be in 5 years under that scenario. So you think about, this is the first year here, 2018, is currently where you're at. If you had all the money, there's your ceiling. This is where you could get to. If you had anticipated money, this is where you expect to be. And if you had money taken away, this is where you would go. Finally, there's a statewide executive summary. In here, we've presented links to download a PDF copy of the executive summary, and we've provided the previous reports from the 2012 and 15 project as well. Simply clicking on the executive summary link will pull up PDF of this for download or printing. That brings us to the next tab over, which is the Airport Details tab. This is the information that's more useful to the individual airports and their engineering consultant firms that they've selected that help them with their work. There's been many changes to the information that presented in this with the revision and additional features that are now available in the APMS website. I'm only going to go over a few of them, but a few of the more important things to keep in mind as you're trying to navigate the information here. You will notice when you first open it up, the only thing you have is, by default, the map of the airport with the current inspected PCI color condition here. Hovering over any pavement will actually bring up a little context menu. You'll see some detailed pavement details over in the left-hand side for the pavement that I'm hovering over. If I actually click on that pavement and select it, the section details are here. These are quick summary information. The PCI when we were out there and did the pavement inspection was a 96, so it's in relatively excellent condition. It shows the last major construction date, which is when the surface was reconstructed or the pavement was rehabilitated or potentially the pavement was constructed. But essentially it set that PCI to a perfect score of 100. And then it shows the inspection date when we were out there and actually performed the PCI inspection. The other piece of information I would like to show on this map is in the past we had a slider on the bottom that would allow us to take, select out here in the open and turn on all the pavements, the colors, zoom in a little bit. We had a timeline slider that showed current condition as well as forecasted that predicted the PCI in the future if you don't do any work for the next 10 years. That slider has now been moved and is over on the right-hand side. And not only does that slider show you the current PCI, which is defaulted to the 2018 inspection, but we have brought in the previous inspection cycles and the previous PCIs of these pavements during the previous projects and updates to the APMS. Going back to the 2018, this was the current update to the system. As I slide that forward into the future, you will see the forecasted PCIs are now updating according to not doing any major pavement repairs or pavement work in the future. So this is kind of like if you don't do anything in the future, this is where you could see your condition trends to move to. I would just say that these performance models are based on pavement performance in the state of North Dakota for similar pavements. And individual pavements might see a deviation, either a better performance or slightly poor performance individually, since these are based on average values of similar pavements throughout the state. Again, going back to 2018, we now have back to the inspection results. The other item I would point out is on the bottom, we have the labels that are currently turned on in the lower right-hand corner. I can turn the labels off if I want to by selecting the Map Labels button. If I want to turn the aerial imagery off, I can turn that on, off. And by default, when you first open it up, we don't have the photographs that were taken during the inspection turned on. But if I click on those photographs, you'll see photo icons show up. These are the photographs that were taken during the inspection by the inspection crew and the locations that they were standing when they took the photos. Hovering over the photo gives you a thumbnail. If I actually click on the photograph, you'll see it selected over here. And if I want to view a larger one, I can click View Photo, and it puts me into a different viewing mode, a split screen with the map on the left and data on the right, and the photo that was taken over here on the left. And the user can scroll between the photos that were taken. Right now, I have one pavement selected, so if I go back out into the open area and click in the aerial photo, you'll see all the photographs over here on the right-hand side that you'll be able to scroll down through and see. And the information that is shown on the right-hand side, when I hover over something, it actually links and shows me where that photo was. If I select it, it shows me which one I'm currently looking at and where that was taken on the left-hand side. I'm going to go back to just having the map. And explain a couple of the finer points for navigating through the information here and how to find other additional selected information. I would also say for smaller screen resolutions, those viewing this on, let's say, tablets or iPads or something along those lines, we've allowed for the management of the space a little bit more. For example, we're trying to take up as little space with the legend as possible, and the timeline over here, vertical, you can actually turn it off. Click X, it will expand or retract up into the upper right-hand corner and provide you with more screen space. And you can always view it again by selecting and dropping it down as well. Couple things to point out here. In the upper left-hand corner, we have what we call the data view. Underneath the data view, it allows us to select at what level of information we want to view or review, I should say, the results. To think of it this way, a network level is the entire airport. A branch level or facility would be like one facility, like runway 1432. Within that one facility, there may be multiple pavements. The pavements for the runway may have been constructed over various points in time. If there's more than one pavement, or if you want to see the individual pavement information, that is shown at the section level. So as an example, I'll select a larger network that has multiple pavements. We'll select Bismarck, for example. You can see right here at the section view that the crosswind runway has several pavements that were constructed over various times of the runway's life. Information pertaining to the actual inspection for each one of these pavements is shown at the section level. If I go back up and select the branch level, it actually takes that information and does an area-weighted composite calculation for the entire runway or facility. We call that a branch. So I select the runway. The entire area-weighted PCI of the pavements in runway 321 is a 76. Looking at the details over here on the left, the branch details, you can see that there are actually 9 pavements within this facility or branch, and they are constructed of various types of pavement. The total area is 682,000 square feet. That's if you want a quick calculation of the area-weighted condition of something. And another example would be the terminal apron. The terminal apron is likely constructed of several pavements at this airport. If I quickly go back to the section level, you can see there are a lot of individual pavements on the terminal that were used to calculate the condition of that overall one. And by going back to the branch, it does an area-weighted calculation of all of them. So that's something to keep in mind, the data view. By default, we go to the individual sections. That is most likely where you're planning maintenance activities, identifying areas for need for rehabilitation or reconstruction, and it's at that level that most pavement management is conducted. However, we do want to provide area-weighted statistics as well. The one thing I would note about this airport is actually the main runway was reconstructed. The majority of it was done during 2018. This year, currently under construction, is the remaining portions of this project. So the pavement area that is empty right now does not have a 2018. It actually has a current PCI in 2019 is projected to be a 100 or perfect. And if I were to take this timeline and scroll it forward 1 year, you would see that information populate. Now it's PCI 100 after that work is completed this year. So anytime you see an empty box, it is likely for pavement that hadn't been constructed quite yet when we were out in the field doing the PCI inspection, but was going to be finished at a later date. And we've anticipated that work getting completed. Finally, there's a network level view, and that is considered information that pertains to the entire airport. For example, inventory. Overall, Bismarck Municipal Airport is not in an oil region, it's commercial service. It's got roughly just under 5.4 million square feet. There are 81 pavements that were inspected and monitored on this system, and the area-weighted age of all that pavement is 11 years. If you go to the inspection tab, there are some inspection comments. Anytime there's individual distress data, you can look in. It'll navigate to another view level to find that information if it's not pertaining to the entire airport. There are inspection comments that briefly discuss the types of distress and criteria that were used to perform the pavement inspection. All of the photographs are shown here. The condition is actually an area-weighted calculation of the entire airport, and this shows that the area-weighted PCI of Bismarck was an 82 in 2018, and if no major work is completed for the next 10 years, this is what the forecast area-weighted PCI of the whole airport would be. Of other note, the next couple items are actually probably the most important, is recommended work. This is where you will find an unlimited budget scenario run of all the pavement needs at the airport broken out by section. In this piece of information here, really what's important to understand is that we have a 5-year analysis window. There is no funding constraint, so this is identifying when a pavement needs to have some work done and under what type of work is needed, independent of whether there's funding available to do it. This is meant to help form the starting point and basis of developing a realistic 5-year capital improvement program for the pavement needs at the airport. When you're looking at this information, some things are important. There is a projected PCI or forecasted or current condition of the pavement before work is completed, what the resulting after PCI would be after the work is completed, and then we've got 4 columns here: preventive maintenance cost, surface treatment cost, resurfacing cost, and major M&R cost. And under these categories are what types or levels of type of work was identified as most applicable for the types of pavement distresses that were observed during the inspection. If you see dollar figures under preventive maintenance, these are things like crack sealing, partial depth repair for spall repair, patching on the asphalt pavement work, full depth repair on Portland cement concrete, slab replacement, those types of activities. If a pavement had a weathering, an asphalt pavement had a weathering surface, a weathered surface, so there was a loss of the asphalt cement and some of the fine material in the asphalt matrix, it may be recommended for a surface treatment. if an asphalt pavement had a raveling issue, or coarse aggregate was becoming loose or displaced or missing, that pavement, if it didn't have a lot of other types of distress, particularly load-related distress or other types of things, there may be a dollar figure associated with a nominal resurfacing. Often you will see surface treatment cost in conjunction with preventive maintenance. For example, in this one right here, you can see that roughly $11,000 for surface treatment and another $1,300 for preventive maintenance was identified. This is a pavement that had some cracking, had some normal other types of distress, and it was identified to seal those cracks prior to the placement of a surface treatment. So often those are seen in conjunction with each other. Then finally, the last column is showing major M&R. This is a pavement that's no longer a candidate for maintenance or normal maintenance activities. The condition is such that it is beyond recommendation for surface treatment or nominal resurfacing or maintenance, but it's in need of something more extensive to bring it back to a serviceability of what you would expect the pavement to be in. And this is for pavements that have deteriorated, relatively older, lots of cracking, lots of block cracking, those types of distresses. If the amount of distress is significant enough, it makes more sense to actually rehabilitate the pavement than to try to continue to maintain it. For pavements that are of really poor condition, let's say a PCI of 40 or less that aren't candidates for any of those other repairs, the dollar figure and the cost associated would be in line with a reconstruction. So that's a summary of the overall unlimited budget scenario. The next tab presents beyond that 5-year window if any of the runways on the airfield that weren't included in that 5-year scenario had forecasted pavement needs beyond that. So this is kind of like a 10-year outlook. So we look at a detailed analysis for the next 5 years from the time that we developed this, but we also looked at the runways at each airport and identified whether or not we thought the condition was going to drop below critical level or serviceable levels, and identified those runway pavements to keep that kind of on your back burner and your radar. For any pavement that was recommended in this 5-year work plan for preventive maintenance, we have detailed estimates of that maintenance. So as an example, if I go back to the work plan, you will see that the GA apron pavement, section 35, was identified with roughly $2,160 worth of maintenance. If you wanted to see an estimate of what was included in that $2,160, you could go here and see that there was some corner spalling. So this is a Portland cement concrete pavement. There were spalling in the corners. We identified partial depth PCC patching for that, and roughly the work quantity and the total cost. So detailed maintenance estimates are here. The other item we have in here are a summary of localized maintenance that's associated with any pavement that was identified as a surface treatment candidate. So you can see here we've got a few pavements that were identified for surface treatment, but in conjunction with that surface treatment there was some crack sealing or other repairs, and this is where the estimates of those quantities are found. So if you're trying to put together an estimate for some maintenance on a particular pavement, if it's identified as a candidate for maintenance, the details of that would be here. A listing of the surface treatments, the types of treatment, whether it's a surface treatment or a nominal resurfacing, is shown here, and it's showing you a PCI before and after for the rough cost for that treatment. We also show that if there was actual crack sealing and other just normal maintenance, we show you what the impact of just doing the crack sealing or preventive maintenance would be without the surface treatment or resurfacing. So you can kind of gauge whether or not it's worth trying to just do the maintenance or try to apply either a surface treatment or resurfacing. So that comparison is shown here. Information about how we ran this, the unit costs that were used are presented in the unit costs tables as well as the maintenance policies. So pavements where we're identifying preventive maintenance, this is how we trigger from the pavement distress that was observed and the type of maintenance action or corrective action that's placed on it. There are some documents here. We are providing an individual copy of the previous executive summaries as well as the most current and recent executive summary report. Simply clicking on that link pulls up a PDF summary of the individual airport executive summary document. There are summary charts similar to the statewide summary. We provide some summary charts for just information pertaining to this individual airport. And then in the end, for the 8 commercial service airports, there was a PCN, payment classification number, which is a structural evaluation or assessment of the payments. This was actually done as part of the 2012 project, and for any payments that are still in existence from the 2012 project, we provide the PCN results similar to what we had in the previous 2 updates. There is advisory circular for more information on the payment classification number and how it's derived, what it means. The results are here, and as I mentioned, for the 8 commercial service airports, the runways have results, PCN results, and those are represented here and shown here again. There was a PCN summary report completed in 2012. That will be here, and then as well as general aircraft classification numbers for various aircraft that might operate out here in the aviation system for North Dakota. A quick explanation is for any given aircraft, there's a corresponding ACN depending on how strong the subgrade strength is. So if you have a subgrade strength category of C, and you're looking at, let's say, an Airbus 320, that aircraft at maximum takeoff weight has an ACN of 57. When you are looking at your actual PCN results of 57, you compare that number to the PCN of the payment that's been identified, and a 57 is greater than a 26. This is for the crosswind runway at Bismarck. So a 57 would put overload, a quick explanation is a 57 being a higher number would overload the PCN of runway 321 at Bismarck, which is a 26. Because 57 is greater than 26, it would not be advisable to have an aircraft of that weight operating on it. So that's the information for the recommended work, the documents, summary charts, and PCN. That's shown at the data view level of network for each individual airport. I'll go back to the section level and show you the other important thing to keep in mind, which is the display view in the upper right-hand corner. The display view allows you to identify what you'd like have displayed on the screen, particularly for resolutions that are smaller and you need to maximize the information or maximize the amount of space that is being used for this information. In the past, previous versions always had detailed information, results information, and the map shown at all times. The current version and the next generation of this APMS website that North Dakota now has allows you to turn on just map, go to a split view to view results and the map at the same time, or go to just the data view and allows you to look at just the data at one time. Underneath this, and I'll give you an example of a smaller screen resolution, you'll see that as screen resolutions shrink and get to a certain point, the only thing that you have available is either the map view or the data view because the resolution is too small. And then at some point, you'll get enough screen resolution that you can go into the split mode. As we look at this in more detail, you can see there's a lot of information shown here. I'm currently at the section level, so all this information that's shown here on the right-hand side is pertaining to pavement section level data. If I go to the inventory, here's a list of all the pavement sections on the airport. If I see one that's Portland cement and it was constructed here, and I'm like, oh, I'm curious which one that is. If I select it on the right, it actually will highlight it in the map on the left. So that reinforces that the map and the information on the data information on the right are linked and correspond to each other. If I select a pavement on the right, it'll show me that information on the left, or on the left, it'll show me the information on the right. So if I'm looking at the map here and I see a pavement that's in relatively poor condition, I'm curious which one that really is. If I select it, it links me to that information on the right. Inventory information is simply that. It's just overall area inventory. You know, when it was constructed, how big it is, what's it constructed of. The detailed work history information is here though as well. So this tells me that its age and relatively when was this pavement constructed, a layer thickness information, if any maintenance has been done in the past. This information is as accurate as we had available. I would mention that if an airport is using this product and they find that there's some information here that's missing, it would be great if they would contact the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission and let them know that there might be a piece of work history missing here and provide that so that it can get included in the next update. The inspection information here is shown here. This shows you estimated total quantities of pavement distress that were observed during the PCI inspection. So you can see the various types of pavement distress that was identified out there. The comments for the pavement, the inspection comments that were noted during the inspection are here. All the photographs are shown here. The pavement condition information is summarized here. You can see this is actually the previous inspection cycle, the 2009, 12, 15, and then the 18 inspection result, as well as the pavement forecast information if you do nothing. So this is where this is the information that's being used to build the timeline. And as I scroll forward in a year, you'll see that column of the year that I'm currently viewing the information shown here on the right. If I actually select the pavement, it'll go to that pavement, and the intersection of those two is showing what piece of information I'm currently looking at that time. A PCI by year chart is shown here. This is for each individual pavement. So if I don't have any pavement selected here, it's going to ask you to make a selection on the map on the left. If I select an individual pavement, it'll present results of the PCI inspection. When it was constructed last, shows a year of 1999. The pavement was a PCI 100. Then in 2009, 12, and 15, it's showing you forecasted or pavement PCI inspection data. So these were actual inspections in the circles. And then in 2019, it's showing that, or 18, it's showing that PCI went back to 100. It was reconstructed in 100, so it's both a PCI 100 and a construction of 100 in 2019. And then if nothing's performed in the future, here's your PCI forecast moving out for the next 10 years. Recommended work. This is a little bit different table for recommended work. It's just showing you in each year the category of work that is identified as a potential for that runway or for that pavement. So you can see this actually corresponds to a map over here in the upper left-hand corner. We're currently looking at a PCI map, but if I go to what is called the capital improvement or the M&R map, this map is showing me over the next 5 years what broad category of work, according to the legend on the bottom, is identified for each pavement in each year. And you can see as I scroll forward, it's identifying the results pictorially of the unlimited budget scenario. Finally, we have documents, again, links to the individual airport documents and the summary charts. PCN information is also represented here, so you don't have to always go back to the network level to find that information. You can find that information at the section level and at the branch level. That is an overview of the summary of North Dakota's new APMS website, the results website. That provides statewide summary statistics, airport details. Those are the two major components that are utilized underneath this system. I'm going to switch back to the PCI map now, the map type of PCI. There is some additional information. I mentioned the maintenance guidelines. The FAA maintenance guidelines, routine maintenance guidelines, those types of pieces of information are provided here. Pavement inspection. This is a good overview of the PCI inspection procedure, what the types of distress are, and the overriding documents and standards and circulars that are followed in order to do this type of work. Anytime you're curious about what an individual pavement distress is, whether it's an asphalt pavement or Portland cement concrete pavement, simply clicking in here, you can find out more information. For example, in this case, alligator or fatigue cracking. What are the criteria used to identify severity levels, as well as how it's identified and measured in the field. So this is a good piece of background information on the overall process and how the information is collected in the field. That all the other subsequent tasks are associated with where that information is and how that information is used or collected. Finally, we have the miscellaneous tab. Definitions used throughout, especially acronyms, are presented here in case there's a question as to what a PFC or porous friction course, what that stands for. There's also general information about this product. as well as contact information. If you have any questions using this product, you feel free to reach out to Applied Pavement Technology or contact myself, Kyle Potvin, the project manager for AppTech underneath this project, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. Again, enjoy. Hopefully you find this product especially utilized as you develop your pavement maintenance and management plans, as well as identifying the needs at each individual airport. Please don't hesitate to reach out and ask any additional questions, and I thank you for your time.